You're listening to Adoptees On, the podcast where adoptees discuss the adoption experience. I'm your host, Haley Radke, and this is a special episode in our Healing series where I interview therapists who are also adoptees themselves so they know from personal experience what it feels like to be an adoptee. Today, we tackle the topic of success with Katie Nafsker. I recorded this episode with Katie a few months ago, just before her book launched. She tells us about some personal insecurities that this process has brought out for her. Let's listen in. Katie Nafsker is an experienced psychotherapist who works with adoptees through the life cycle, adoptive parents, and families. Welcome to Adoptees On, Katie.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you back. Today we're talking about adoptee success and how some of us can struggle with that. We might not feel like we deserve to be successful. There's just maybe a fear of putting ourselves out there and having people actually accept us and actually love us. I'd love to just get your thoughts on that.
Sure. And this topic is relevant for me because I am coming out with a book for adoptive parents of teens soon. And so really just this morning, I was at a meeting to talk about the launch party that I'm kind of working on. It's actually at a bookstore that's amazing for any of you who are local. It's called More Than Words, and it's run by those in foster care or those who have been in foster care at some point. But anyway, that's a side note. So we were just talking about the launch party, and some of the other folks who were there asked me, are you excited? And I guess I didn't seem that excited, even though I did say yes. And they asked me again, like, are you excited? And I was trying to figure out why I wasn't able to just be as excited as they were or be as excited as I thought I should be. And I was remembering a situation that happened several years ago when I first started working on conferences and stuff. And I was talking with an adoptive parent about the schedule for the conference. And she was talking about who the options were for the keynote. I mean, I was very young. I certainly wasn't volunteering myself. But I said, well, what about an adoptee? It would be nice to have an adoptee, given that it's an adoptee organization. And she said, you know what, Katie, to tell you the truth, adoptees are a dime a dozen. I was really floored, and I was also really young and confused by that comment. And I was also really confused because she was a supporter of adoptees, and she was kind of in the adoption community, and she was very educated and informed and very sort of passionate about adoptee issues. And so I just didn't really know what to make of that. And although I did find it a bit offensive, I also resonated with it that I do think that sometimes adoptees can feel that way, that we can feel like a dime a dozen, like we're not, we're not worth that much. There's not that much value to what we bring to the table or who we are as people, or, that we're special or interesting or unique in some way. And I was just thinking to myself, how can we get to this other place where we are not a dime a dozen? And when she said that, I did say to myself, well, I'm not going to, I'm going to challenge this stereotype that she has. And so at that point, I did decide, okay, I'm going to make it clear that adoptees are not a dime a dozen. But here I am with this book, and I do still feel haunted by these just certain insecurities or certain feelings like I really shouldn't be doing this book. I really should just be doing the usual thing and not really trying to stand out and not trying to kind of say something important or timely or something like that. And it haunted me more than I was expecting, because I feel good about the book. I feel good about the information. But there is still that thing about, am I really maybe just another adoptee? So even when we're talking about the party and the, sale, whatever else, people talk about with books, I still have that nagging thing that is happening to me literally these days as I'm preparing for this launch of you're just another adoptee. What do you think you're doing? And so when someone says, are you excited? Yes, I'm excited, but I'm also actively trying to manage this whole other kind of insecurity that I think is probably pretty old, pretty old and weathered. And it takes a lot of effort and energy to kind of work through that on an everyday basis. And I think a lot of adoptees go through that. Obviously, adoptees are just as deserving as anyone else. And, adoptees deserve to be happy and adoptees deserve to have it all. Not that we do have it all or ever will, but we deserve to have everything that everyone else has. And there is something about kind of feeling entitled to that or feeling that feels wrong somehow.
What's the piece of that you can identify for us about that? Like, I'm just trying to think, is it because we just really need to fit in and being successful breaks us out of fitting in? I don't know. I'm kind of confused about that piece.
Yeah. It's funny. I have this, whenever I talk about this, I have this image of the infant care unit that I was in Korea, which I talked about at other points. And just seeing these rows and rows of babies and just feeling like, even though they're all different. And when I spent time in that infant care unit, I remembered that they're all different and they're all radically different. I mean, their personalities are so distinctive. When I, pick up a baby, when I changed a baby's diaper, they're completely different from, the baby next to them. But when you don't look up close, they just look like rows and rows of babies. And there is something, for me, there's something like oddly comforting and then also kind of alienating at the same time, that it's sort of like we're anonymous. We're like baby boy, we're the ones without names and without stories and without, answers. And I feel like it's hard to kind of break through that.
So if we're successful, we might really be seen for who we are.
We might really be seen, and we might be kind of, as you would sort of slap back or rebuked, like, what do you think you're trying to do? Be something that you're not, which is totally irrational, obviously, but it's weird. Sometimes I think when I think about adoption, I think about the fact that adoptees were really dependent on the kindness of strangers. And, given that we really didn't have those first parents, looking after us or caring for us, that we really kind of just would hope that people would take care of us. And, there's a way that we can feel like we're begging to be taken care of or begging to be loved. And so the idea that we could be entitled or empowered can almost feel sort of risky a little bit. Like, sometimes that doesn't work when you are the ones just trying to, get by or just trying to be taken care of.
So what would be the next steps for reconciling that, for that we're worthy of being successful? Like you said before, like we could have everything that non-adopted people have.
Mm-hmm. I think that in general, I like to say that integration is our goal as adoptees, that there are all these different fragments of our personality, of our history, of our the people, the important people in our life that don't mix well. And so I'm always striving for integration. For me, the answer isn't to chastise that part of us that's insecure or, judge or criticize that part of us or try to ignore that part of us. It's to somehow try to integrate it in a way where we can acknowledge it, but not cater to it and let it sort of make the final call. And, when I think about decisions that I've made while being haunted by this part of me that feels like, look, you're just another adoptee, it's because the drive to do that particular thing is just a little stronger than the drive to stay just another adoptee. And so that's what I really depend on for myself. Like for this book, it's way, way out of my comfort zone, but I felt strongly enough about the information, the message and the information that I feel that adoptive parents really need in order to best parent, adopted teens. And so for me, that overpowered those other feelings of insecurity. Not that they're not there, but that they can't make the final call.
So thinking of all of this, what would you say to adoptees who might unknowingly be self-sabotaging themselves in their families, in their personal relationships, but specifically in their careers or their ambitions in other ways? What would you say to them?
Of course, it depends a little bit, but I might challenge them on that. If I feel like they're playing it safe, meaning that they're either sabotaging so that they don't get, so that they're not successful, or they're not taking certain risks, like getting a job that's a little bit outside of their comfort zone, or doing something, like that I might actually just challenge them on that. Like, it feels like you're just trying to stay in your comfort zone, which I totally respect, actually. It's not that I need them to move forward, but it's more that I want them to be able to make an informed decision, not just be sort of reacting to, unconscious feelings.
Well, it's interesting to have this discussion because we can probably all name a few celebrities that we know are adopted, or, and so those people probably have had that drive to make themselves known in some way. And then we can think of the, oh geez, I don't even want to say it, the dime a dozen adoptee. Anyway, it's interesting to think about that range.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
Any last thoughts for us on this, Katie?
Yeah, I think my last thought is that we are more than just adoptees. That we are adoptees who bring a lot to the table, and who are really interesting and really complex, and who have a lot of feelings and reactions and goals. So we're more than just adoptees.
And it's okay for us to be successful.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Thank you so much. I love talking about that with you. Where can we connect with you online?
My website is www.adoptiontherapyma.com.
Great. And I will link to all of your social media accounts on the show notes. And we can find that book that you were telling us about on Amazon. And it's called Parenting in the Eye of the Storm, The Adoptive Parent's Guide to Navigating the Teen Years.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for talking with us today, Katie.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
Everything we talked about today is in the show notes at adopteeson.com, including a link to that bookstore Katie mentioned, More Than Words. It looks like such an amazing program. What a great concept. If you would like to connect with other adoptees who are on this healing journey, come and support me on Patreon. You can help me by pledging a monthly amount that helps sustain the podcast. And as a thank you, you can join my secret Facebook group, which has all these incredible people in it who are just like you, working towards healing and wholeness. And we're all kind of just going on this journey together. To join, go to adopteeson.com/partner, and you'll find all the details there. Today, would you tell just one person about this episode? Maybe it's a fellow adoptee that you think may be holding back from doing that big, exciting thing that they are just meant to do. Ask them to listen and see if they feel challenged to step out bravely. Thank you for listening. Let's talk again next Friday.